Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Rosh Hashanah and specifically Hilchos Shofar. We will be learning today Mirtz Hashem Daf Samach Amud Aleph, as well as at least some of Samach Amud Beis. At least some of Samach Amud Beis as well. We pick up in Siman Tavkuf Tzadik Siv Dalet. As you can tell, my voice is definitely improved. However, I do have to go easy on it, which doesn't come natural to me. As you who listen to the share all the time know, my style is more of a dynamic and, I guess, exciting style, and I tend to raise my voice, but I simply cannot. Hopefully my voice will hold out for the duration of the share. I think it will if I treat it with care. So we pick up on Samach Amud Aleph, Siman Tavkuf Tzadik Siv Dalet. Says the Mechaber, Shloisha Shvarim, when you blow a Shvarim, the three notes of the Shvarim, Tzarech la'asoisam b'neshima achas, you have to blow them in one breath. So all three shevers, all three notes of the Shvarim have to be blown in one breath. Aval, however, Shloisha Shvarim u'trua de tashrat, however, when you blow, you know what, let's stop for a second and let's see the Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Tezayin. So the Mechaber has told us here that when you blow a Shvarim, all three sounds of the Shvarim have to be blown b'neshima achas. Says the Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Tezayin, b'neshima achas, why is that? Tezeh anu oisin, because why are we blowing a Shvarim? Tezeh anu oisin b'shvil trua hakasav HaTorah. Because as we mentioned in the beginning of Siman Tavkuf Tzadik, Min HaTorah, there are only two types of kolos that we have to blow. We have to blow a tekiah and we have to blow a trua. And every trua has to be sandwiched between two tekiyahs. The problem is we don't know precisely what the Torah meant when the Torah said trua. We have this suffix and we have one of three choices. Either when the Torah says trua, it means what we call a trua, or possibly when the Torah says trua, it means the koil that we know as a shvarim, or it could be that when the Torah said trua, the Torah really meant what we call a shvarim trua. So when we blow a shvarim, why are we blowing a shvarim? We're blowing a shvarim because we believe that that sound, that group of sounds, the three shevers, the shvarim, might be a trua. So dezeh anu oisin b'shvil trua hakasav HaTorah. We're blowing the three-note shvarim because that may be what the Torah meant when it wrote trua. Ve'ein lahafsika l'shnayim. If the shvarim that we blow is in reality a trua, then we cannot divide the sounds of the trua into different pieces. We have to blow it b'neshima achas. The kasser roiva paiskim, most of the paiskim write, tezehu li'ikuva afilu b'di evet. Most of the paiskim write that that's li'ikuva. When you blow the shvarim, you have to blow all three notes of the shvarim b'neshima achas. Okay, so that's the shvarim. Now let's continue in the Mechaber. Continues the Mechaber. Aval, however, shloisha shvarim. How about when you blow a shvarim trua? The three notes of the shvarim, trua, and then the trua, the tashrat. The tashrat is tekiah, shvarim trua tekiah. So the middle, what we're calling the trua, is a shvarim trua. Do you have to blow the shvarim trua b'neshima achas? Now, on the one hand, according to the logic that the Mishnah Berurah just said, the Mishnah Berurah said that when we blow a shvarim, we have to blow the entire shvarim b'neshima achas, because since that might be the trua, we can't divide it. It's one trua, so it has to be b'neshima achas. Now, according to that logic, the shvarim trua should be the same way. When you blow a shvarim trua, it's also because that might be the trua. So it should be, according to that logic, that you have to blow the shvarim trua b'neshima achas. But let's see what the Mechaber says. The Mechaber says, Aval shloisha shvarim u'trua de tashrat. However, the three notes of the shvarim and the trua of the tekiah shvarim trua tekiah, over there already we have a machlokes. Yesh Oimrim, you have the Rabbeinu Tam, you have the Rabbeinu Tam and the Magid Mishnah and others. Yesh omrim she'enoi tzarich la'asoisam b'neshima achas. There are those that say that no, you do not have to blow the shvarim trua b'neshima achas. You could have a hefsik between the shvarim and the trua, with the caveat, says the Mechaber, v'hu, and that would be shalo yisha b'hafsaka yoiser mikidei neshima. You do not have to blow, according to this shita, you do not have to blow the shvarim trua b'neshima achas in one breath. However, you cannot have a hefsik between the shvarim and the trua that's longer than a neshima. You could have a hefsik, but only kidei neshima, only up to the length of a breath. More than that, you cannot have. But it doesn't have to be b'neshima achas, according to this opinion. Now, why would that be? So let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. It's cut in Yud Zayin. She'eino tzarech la'asoisam b'neshima achas. There are those opinions that say that the shvarim and the trua together do not have to be blown b'neshima achas in one breath. You could have a hefsik between them. Why? Explains the Chavetz Chaim, but the genuche v'yelule loy avdi inshi b'neshima achas. Because let's remember, what is our suffix? Our suffix is, when the Torah says trua, we know that meant crying. It meant the sound of a sob. But we don't know precisely which part of the crying the Torah was referring to. Is it the genuche or the yelule? Is it the yelule, which is the wailing in the staccato sound of a trua? Or is it the sobbing, the slow sobbing? When a person cries, usually the cry is comprised of two different types of sounds. There's the genuche, and then the yelule, So the genuche is the shvarim, the yelule is the trua. Now the fact is that when a person cries that way, he usually does not make both parts of the crying sound in one breath. Usually there's the slow sobbing, then he takes a breath, and then there's the staccato wailing. So that's why the Chavetz Chaim says, you know why this Yesh Omrim says that you don't have to have the shvarim trua b'neshima achas? Because even though it's true that we're blowing a shvarim trua, because we think that might be what the Torah meant by trua, but the bottom line is that type of sound is not generally made in one breath. It's usually made in two breaths. So if the Torah Hakdosha meant a shvarim trua, when it said trua, the Torah Hakdosha was specifying a sound that is generally made in two breaths. And therefore, you could be mafsik between the shvarim and the trua, kidei neshima. Continues the Chavetz Chaim in Eis Yud Zayin. Vayin bebeis Yosef, he says, take a look in the Beis Yosef, ubach, the b'di'eved, gam l'dei azu, even according to this opinion, who says that you do not have to do the shvarim trua b'neshima achas, im asa b'neshima achas, if you did do the shvarim trua b'neshima achas, yotza. So this opinion is not saying that you must do the shvarim trua with a hefsik. It's not saying you must do it b'shtei neshimas. It's saying you could do it b'shtei neshimas. This opinion holds that l'chatchila it would be better to do it b'shtei neshimas, because that's the way a person generally makes this type of crying sound. But you could do it b'neshima achas. But yeah, certainly you could do it b'neshima achas. So here we have the first opinion brought down by the Mechaber. The first opinion over here is the Yesh Omrim, that you do not have to do the shvarim trua b'neshima achas. You could do it b'shtei neshimas. But if you're going to do it b'shtei neshimas, you have to make sure that the hefsik between the shvarim and the trua is not longer than kidei neshima. It shouldn't be longer than the time it takes to take a breath. Now continues the Mechaber, 2 lines from the bottom, by the Ois Kat Yud Ches for the Mishnah Berurah. V'yesh Omrim, there is another opinion, and this is brought down in the name of the Ritzkeus, the Rosh, and the Ramban. V'yesh Omrim, shetzarech la'asoisam b'neshima achas. However, there is another opinion that says that the shvarim and the trua do have to be blown in one breath, b'neshima achas. Says the Mishnah Berurah Kat Yud Ches. V'yesh Omrim shetzarech la'asoisam b'neshima achas. There are those that say that the shvarim and the trua do have to be blown in one breath. Says the Chavetz Chaim, The taimam, and their reasoning is the hamasha on ois in shvarim trua. The whole reason we were blowing a shvarim trua, whom ipnei deshema kavanas HaTorah betrua l'shtein dafka, is again because maybe when the Torah Hagdosha said trua, the intent of the Torah was for what we call the shvarim trua. Da'az yaitze yidei trua. So it's only when you blow a shvarim trua that you could be yaitze what the Torah wants in the blowing of a trua. In Cain, if so, then it's like we said earlier in the share. If the shvarim trua is the trua of the Torah, in Cain, ein lahafsik beinein b'neshima, then you should not be mafsik between two halves of the trua, between the shvarim and the trua with the neshima. Because that would be as if you are mafsik in the middle of a shvarim or in the middle of a trua. Right? We said at the beginning of this year that a shvarim has to be blown b'neshima achas, because it could be that the shvarim is what the Torah wants for a trua. So you can't be mafsik in the middle of the koil. The same way you can't be mafsik in the middle of a tekiah. You can't be mafsik in the middle of a tekiah. You can't be mafsik in the middle of a shvarim because it might be a trua. You can't be mafsik in the middle of a trua because it might be the trua. So you also can't be mafsik in the shvarim trua because it might be the trua. That's the rationale of this Yesh Omrim that says that it must be blown b'neshima achas. Valkein, and based on this shita would hold, afilu b'di'evet, even b'di'evet, if you blew a shvarim trua b'shtei neshimas, and masaked machzir noisai, you would have to blow it over again according to this shita. Umikam makayim, nevertheless, says the Chavetz Chaim, lo yiska shvarim trua b'koyach echad bilti shum hefsik. Very interesting. The Chavetz Chaim says, even according to this Yesh Omrim, so even according to this rationale, that the shvarim trua is one koil, and it should not be divided, and therefore you have to blow it b'neshima achas, it doesn't mean that the shvarim should run right into the trua, so that you're blowing everything b'kayach echad. It's all one act of blowing. To b'kai gavda loy mikri neshima achas. Very odd words that the Chavetz Chaim uses here. Chas v'chalila, I'm not saying that the writing of the Chavetz Chaim is in any way lacking. I'm sure the Chavetz Chaim chose these words very carefully. It's my own lack of Havana. I'm looking at the words of the Chavetz Chaim, and I've been puzzling over this phraseology. I find it to be a little bit difficult. Chavetz Chaim says, don't blow, even according to the Shita, that the shvarim trua should be blown b'neshima achas. It doesn't mean that it should all run mamish together. Why? The bekahai gavna, because if you blow it in that manner, loy mikri neshima achas, that's not called, I think this is what he means, that's not called blowing two different types of kolos, a shvarim and a trua, b'neshima achas, in one breath. What if you do it that way, you're not differentiating. Yes, the shvarim and the trua sound different, but if you do it mamish straight together, so it's kind of like one unified koil. And even though we're blowing the shvarim trua to be mekayim the trua of the Torah, so really we do want it to be one unified koil, but it is one koil that's comprised of two different types of sounds. And therefore we do have to make a differentiation between the two parts. So we're walking a tightrope. See, now I'm starting to get too loud and I feel it right away. On the one hand, according to this shita, the shvarim and the trua are considered one koil that we blow in order to be mekayim a trua. On the other hand, if the shvarim and the trua is indeed the trua of the Torah, then the trua of the Torah is a sound, a koil, that is comprised of two different types of sounds. And therefore, while we don't want you to blow it b'shtei neshimas, we don't want you to be mafsik between the shvarim and the trua by taking a breath, or even by waiting long enough to take a breath, because that would mamish make a break in the koil of the shvarim trua. We also don't want you to mamish blow it as one koil, because then it's not recognizable that it's built out of two different types of koilos. Or rather, says the Chavetz Chaim, yafsik ma'at. There should be a little bit of a hefsik. Rak shelo yeh b'chtei neshima b'intayim. Just the hefsik should not be long enough to take a breath. Let me see if I could I don't know if it'll come across in a video, but let's see if I could try and give you an idea of the difference. First, I'm going to blow a shvar trua b'shtei neshimas. I'm going to take a breath between the two. Again. Now I'll do it b'neshima achas without any pause. See what that is? It goes mamish straight in. So it's one long coil. Now I'll do it b'neshima achas with a little bit of a hefsek. Don't like the way the shofar sounds today. I'm putting too much pressure on my lips. That's why that's happening. You know, I feel very self-conscious because I know Shlomo Zalman is watching over here. I'm going to get professional critique. Okay. So here I hope you can hear the difference. So again, to just encapsulate what we've seen over here. So we have one shita that says that the shvar trua don't have to be b'neshima achas. You could be mafsik in between to take a breath. You can't be mafsik longer than taking a breath. And the reason you could be mafsik is because even though we're blowing this in order to be a trua, but since the physical fact is that when a person cries, he does not do the genuche and the yulule in one breath, so too the sound of the trua doesn't have to be blown in one breath. If the sound of the trua is genuche v'yulule, if it's shvarim and trua, so then you don't have to do it in one breath, because that's not the way a person cries. That's the first shita. The second shita says no, it has to be in one breath, because it's one koil. It's a shvarim trua intended to be a trua. So it's one koil, it's got to be in one breath. However, doing it in one breath, says the Chavetz Chaim, doesn't mean that it should mamish run from the shvarim straight into the trua. There should be a hefsek so that it's clear that there's a shvarim and a trua. Okay, now let's go weiter in the mechaber. 2 lines from the bottom and middle of the line. So what do? So we have this machlokes. Says the mechaber, v'yirei shamayim yeitzei yedei kulam. Somebody who is yer shamayim, somebody who wants to make sure that he's mekayim the mitzvah ketikuna, should strive to be yeitzei both shitas. How should he do that? Says the mechaber, u'betekiyais demiyushiv, when he blows the tekiyais demiyushiv before musaf, yaseh b'neshima achas. Those should be done b'neshima achas. U'betekiyas demu'umid, and when you blow the tekiyas demu'umid in the middle of musaf, and malchi is a chrynus and shayfreis, yaseh b'shtei neshimas. Then you should blow with shtei neshimas. And in this way, you're going to be yaitz both shitas. You're going to have the tekiyas demiyushiv that you did b'neshima achas, and you'll have the tekiyas demu'umid that you did b'shtei neshimas. Says the Mishnah is cutting you a test. When you do the tekiyas dema'umid, you should blow b'shtei neshimas. Aval ibchaloi. However, you should not do it the other way around. You should not blow the shtei neshimas by the tekiyas demiyushiv and the neshima achas by the tekiyas dema'umid. In the locales, like dare say, like most of us do, where you blow on each seder of Malchus, Zechrinus, and Shofars, you blow Tashrat, Tashat, and Tarat, V'chen Zechrinus, V'chen Shofars, Yachalasas Gamke Lehepech. You could do B'miyushiv B'shtei Neshimas, you could do the Tekiyas to B'yushiv B'shtei Neshimas, and the Tekiyas to Mu'umid, you could do B'neshima Achas. You see, what's at play over here in this Mishnah Berurah is, again, you have the 2 shitas. You have one shita that says that you don't need neshima achas, but with neshima achas you would definitely be yoitza. Then you have the Yeshaibrim that says that you have to do it b'neshima achas. Now, according to that shita, you're not yoitza at all if you do it b'shtei neshimas. Therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim over here, if, you see, there were different minhagim. We have the minig that by the Tekiyas Umid, by Malchiyas, Achraynis, and Shofrais, we blow Tashrat, Tashat, and Tarat by each Seder. Therefore, there's really no effective difference between the Tekiyas Umid and the Tekiyas Yoshev. By both of them, you're blowing 30 kailos. Therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, if you're going to blow 30 kailos by the Tekiyas Yoshev, and you're going to blow another 30 kailos by the Tekiyas Umid, so fine. It doesn't matter which one you do b'neshima achas and which one you do b'shtei neshimas. However, if you're not in such a place, there were places where the kailos that they blew by the Tekiyas Umid in middle of Musaf, let's say, they only blew Tekiyah Shvarim Trua Tekiyah after Malchiyas, another Tekiyah Shvarim Trua Tekiyah after Zechraynos, and another Tekiyah Shvarim Trua Tekiyah after Zechraynos. Well, in that case, you're not blowing 30 kailos, and you're not blowing all the different types of kailos by the Tekiyas Yoshev. In that case, if that's your minig, then what you should do is, by the Tekiyas Yoshev, you should blow b'neshima achas. That way you got 30 kailos that you're yoitza according to everybody. You're yoitza according to both shitas. And then by the Tekiyas Umid, blow b'shtei neshimas. So the Tekiyas Umid, you're not yoitza according to the shita that you need neshima achas. But you already got 30 kailos that you are yoitza according to both shitas. Now says the Ramah, Haga, v'aminig ha'pashut, says the Ramah, the simple minig is, Lasais hakoil b'shtei neshimas, to blow all of the kailos b'shtei neshimas, and the Ramah says ve'en l'shanois, and you should not change from that minig. Now the Mishnah Berurah over here, Reis Katlachaf says, v'aminig ha'pashut, uve'mekarmei shenoigin lasais b'neshima achas. However, the Chavetz Chaim says in mekarmos where they have the minig to blow b'neshima achas, at least some of the kailos, gam kein lo yishanu min hagam. They should not change their minig. Even though the Ramah says that the minig ha'pashut is that you should blow everything b'shtei neshimas, says the Chavetz Chaim, in a locale where they have the minig to blow at least some of the kailos b'neshima achas, they should not change that. Lo yishanu min hagam. Va'afilu lefi min hagenu, and even according to our minig, yamasa b'neshima achas yotza, if you blow b'neshima achas, you are yotza. Now, if you take a look here on Samachei Amid Beis, in the Sharetzion Ois Cotton Yud Ches, the Sharetzion says, Bach ve'el yazuta, that's from where you have this brought down, that you should not change the minig. If you have the minig to blow b'neshima achas and shtei neshimas, you shouldn't change the minig. V'hinei b'chaya yodam, says the Chavetz Chaim here in the Sharetzion, if you look at the Chai Yodam, Hishmit Masha Kosav HaRamah, the Chai Yodam leaves out this statement of the Ramahs, that there is this minig pashut, that you should blow everything b'shtei neshimas. The Chai Yodam doesn't even bring down that Ramah. The be'emes achras ha'shulchan aruch toiv ha'ma'od. Because, says the Chavetz Chaim, the hachra of the mechaber, where the mechaber gives the eitzah to blow the Tekiyas the Miyoshev, the Tekiyas the Miyoshev b'neshima achas, and the Tekiyas the Moabed b'shtei neshimas, is a beautiful eitzah. The Bazar Yaitzi Nidei Kaladeis, because now Yaitzi according to everybody. The Gam to Dasa Beis Yosef, and according to the Beis Yosef, Tafilo Das Rabbeinu Tam Masam Nishima Achas Yotza. The Beis Yosef says that even according to the Rabbeinu Tam, who says that we should do it b'shtei neshimas, because Genuche and Yulule Adon b'shtei neshimas, Yozicha Yaitzi, if you do it b'neshima achas, V'im Keinim Nasa b'neshima achas, Yaitzi Tov Las Yidei Adin. So why should the Ramah say that the minig ha'pashut is to do everything b'shtei neshimas? Why? According to the shita that you need neshima achas, you're not yoitza. So the hachra of the Shulchan Aruch, says the Chavetz Chaim, is a beautiful hachra. And I know, at least by us, that's our minig. We do half of them b'neshima achas and half of them b'shtei neshimas. We don't follow this Ramah, even though generally speaking, we do paskin like the Ramah. Okay. Mishnah Berurah is cut Chaf Aleph. The Ramah said that the minig ha'pashut is lasais hakol b'shtei neshimas, to blow everything b'shtei neshimas. However, says the Chavetz Chaim, when you are blowing b'shtei neshimas, you have to be very careful. Ach yizaher, just you should be very careful. Shelo yafsik yoser b'kidei neshima, that when you make that hefsik, when you're blowing b'shtei neshimas and you make that hefsik, the hefsek should not be longer than a kedei neshima. Valkein, and therefore says the Chavetz Chaim, Toiv, it is good sheyakri lefanav hamakre, that when the makri calls out the kolos, he should call out shvarim trua b'pamakas. He should make sure to call out the shvarim and the trua together in one sound. He should call it out shvarim trua, not shvarim trua, in order to highlight that there should not be too much of a hefsek. Even if you're blowing it b'shtei neshimas, there shouldn't be too much of a hefsek between the two sounds. Then yamten atekeya achiyikra akayra lefanav tevas trua. Oh, that's not even what he means. What he means is that the makri should call out shvarim trua, and then the Baal Tekeh should blow a shvarim and a trua together. Not that the makri should call out shvarim, and then the Baal Tekeh should blow a shvarim, and then the makri should say trua, and the Baal Tekeh should blow a trua. He says, don't do that. Why? Because now what's going to happen is the makri calls out shvarim, the Baal Tekeh blows a shvarim, and now there's a pause, and now the makri has to call out trua. So now there's a long pause. Then it's very, very possible and plausible that the hefsek between the shvarim and the trua will be longer than a kedei neshima. Okay, let's go to Sifkat and Hay. Imtaka tarat b'neshima achas. Very interesting. Let's say you blew a tekiah, trua, tekiah, all b'neshima achas. You didn't pause at all. No pause. Tekiah, trua, tekiah. All b'neshima achas going straight through. Imtaka tarat b'neshima achas, yotza. Makarba says you're yotza. However, there are those that say that you're not yotza. Now let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says shalo yotza is cut and chav beis. There are those that say that you're not yotza. De'ein kan loy roish v'loy soif. Because if you're blowing everything b'neshima achas, we're going to see that every coil has to have a roish and a soif. Every coil has to have a beginning and an end. Now, what I just did, where you blow a tekiah and a trua and a tekiah, all b'neshima achas, what happens? Well, the first tekiah has a roish, it has a beginning, but it doesn't have a soif, because I blew the end of the tekiah, I stopped and I went straight into the trua. So the tekiah ran right into the trua. So there's no soif, there's no end of the tekiah. The trua has no tchila, because it was led into straight from the tekiah, and it has no soif, because it runs right into the next tekiah. And the last tekiah has no roish, but it has a soif. So dein kan lo roish v'lo soif. With svar rishoyna svirala, the first opinion of the mechaber in Sif Hey, when the mechaber says you could be yotza with such a koil, svirala, that opinion holds. Kevin the nicker, since the koilos are nicker, the tekiah and the trua and the tekiah do sound all different. Salki l'chol echad ve'echad, you are yotza. Fine, b'bir agroshes, give l'der rishayna. If you take a look at the Gra, you'll see that the Gra agrees to this first opinion. Okay, I'm going to have to stop over here because I really feel that my throat is starting to shut down on me, and I would like to go weiter, but I just don't want to risk that I'm going to push myself too much today, and then I'm not going to be able to say shir tomorrow. So, Baruch Hashem, we made it this far. Miz Hashem will pick up tomorrow with Sivav. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. For Baruch Hashem should send Yeshua's refuahs and parnasa to all those in need, and we should be zoichet to see the Pias Tzedek b'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.